Hey folks, it's Abby and today I'm going to be going through the 12 books in my 2022 book bracket. So if you don't know how this works, it's primarily a thing on Instagram, usually, at least for me, where you pick the best book out of each month, you put it in a slot from 1 to 12, and then those battle against each other to find your best book of the year. I thought it'd be fun to do it in video form this year. For January, my best book was The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I would like to acknowledge that there are a lot of issues surrounding TJ Klune at the moment, and when he published this is based on residential schools. The basis of that, given that he is not indigenous to the North American area, is quite problematic, and the fact that this is supposed to be that it's a good thing that they're in these schools is an interesting take. Do not agree with that in the slightest, but I can't deny that this made me sob, it made me weep. It was the best book I read that month, but I am struggling to separate it from what TJ Klune himself did, so I don't like mentioning it without mentioning that, so please do be aware. But yes, this book is about boarding schools where you send all the magical kids because they can't be trusted in regular society, and then it turns out that they're actually good after all. You see the issues, however, it's a beautifully written story, it's got LGBTQ+ representation in it. It's kind of balancing the two dichotomies. Then for February, I couldn't pick between two, and I have my reasons. So one is This Is How You Lose the Time War, which is by Amal El-Mota and Max Gladstone, and the other is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Technically, this one is the winner on Court Pile. However, this one was lent to me and then became mine from my mother-in-law, who passed away not too long after I read this, and so the emotional factor means that I couldn't not, but then this was also beautiful, so they're both for February. This one is Greek mythology and utterly confusing the entire way through. This one is sci-fi and also kind of confusing the entire way through, so it works. March, and we have a non-fiction, Super Volcanoes by Robin George Andrews. This is what it says in the tin, it's a book about volcanoes. I loved it so much. This is so accessible. I ended up going on about it so much that I got Carrie from Caring for Books to pick it up, and she ended up saying that she really enjoyed it. She found it really accessible as well. She thought that it wasn't condescending and it was still entertaining. So from a non-geologist, there are recommendations, and genuinely this tells you all the facts that you need to know. I learnt a few little bits that I'd forgotten, or just little specificities that I didn't know, but also you don't feel talked down to. It's not overly simplistic whilst not being too complicated, and his sense of humour is great. It's a little bit British, but great sense of humour. So I genuinely, to anyone who's vaguely interested in non-fictions and like thinks that volcanoes are kind of cool, genuinely recommend. Great book. Then for April we have The Embroidered Book by Kate Hartfield. This is a historical fantasy based around, I always forget one of the names, Charlotte and Marie Antoinette. Charlotte was actually intended to be the one married off to the French monarchy, and Marie Antoinette ended up going there when an older sister died and Charlotte had to take her place. And so this utilises a lot of the real life political intrigue that was going on alongside this kind of magic system where you have to give up things that mean a lot to you in order to get the consequences of the spell that you want, and how that doesn't always work out in your favour. I loved seeing how that was integrated into the real life politics of Naples and of France. That's where Charlotte ends up. She ends up in Naples. This was just done absolutely beautifully. I know it's a tomb, I know it's a tomb, and it is a slow read, but I adored it. And then when I went and was like, oh my god, I 100% need to like look up more now about Marie Antoinette and about Charlotte and learn more about them, this was weirdly accurate. Like, even like the magical, like, oh, we're not gonna get on because of this magical thing. No, she utilised real, like, political rivalries and stuff to do that. It's beautifully researched. Fantastic historical fantasy. Then in May, and we have Wild and Wicked Things. Someone's at my front door. That was my PC case arriving. I only ordered it at like 10 o'clock last night. So I didn't order it using Prime, so I'm very surprised that it's here already, but hey ho. Very excited to look at that. Okay, where was I? January, February, March, April, May. May's best book was Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May. Are you noticing a theme here? As soon as I got the Goldsborough books, they started going up to the top. This is a fantasy book set in the 1920s. You see the Great Gatsby themes, about lesbians, about non-binary individuals, about magic. I loved this. it's a lot of fun. I really want more people to read it just so I can hear their thoughts on it. It was a fun time, and look at those gorgeous edges. Oh. Then in June, so this is actually my lowest rated book of them all, which is kind of sad, but it's Minnesota's Geologist by Sue Leaf. I gave this a very high 4 stars, a 4.5 stars, but I barely read anything this month. It was a rough month. So yes, this is a non-fiction all about the life of Newton Horace Winchell, who was a geologist in Minnesota. It's self-explanatory title, but it's actually really, really interesting. So for starters, I'm very happy at the fact that Mr. Horace Winchell was a feminist, quite clearly. He agreed with his wife in a lot of the stuff that she chose to do. Love that. Also loved learning more about the geology of that area of North America, because it's not something that I know about. We don't tend to study America really unless you're specifically going to go and study like Yellowstone or Hawaii. This was incredibly interesting, and this was sent to me and prior annotated by Carrie, and I really, really enjoyed this. Not quite enough obviously to get it that 5 star. It wasn't as humorous and kind of personable as Super Volcanoes, so it didn't kind of get quite that aspect along, but I still really enjoyed it. This is more niche. This is more for intellectuals, geologists, people of that ilk. I wouldn't recommend this to the majority of readers, but I really enjoyed it. Then July, and I went with The Travelling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arakawa. So this is the 3rd out of 4 translated cat books from Japanese that my partner got me last Christmas that I was reading throughout 2022, and this one was my absolute favourite. And it's just so beautiful. It's just so beautiful. In this one we follow a cat who's going on a road trip with his owner because his owner is chronically ill and doesn't think he can care for the cat anymore, and he's trying to find a home for the cat, and it's about the cat not wanting to leave his owner's side. I cried. It's beautiful. You all need to read it. Like, I promise, this is a gorgeous, gorgeous story. Then in August, and we are back to Goldsborough, which is The Final Strife by Sarah El Arifi. There's no cover on this one, it is the Goldsborough Special Edition. This is a high fantasy book that follows a world where there's 3 kind of castes of people who have red blood, blue blood and white blood in that descending order. This is beautiful. It has every sort of representation in it that you could possibly even think of, like everything. Love that. Love that. It's like integrated seamlessly. It clearly wasn't just tacked on. Integrated seamlessly throughout the book. I adored the protagonist, very much morally grey. She does not do everything correctly. She does a lot of things incorrectly, but I loved reading from her point of view. And we do also actually get 2 other points of view from the different casts, and I really enjoyed how they added depth to the story and how they added an extra dimension to what was going on in the primary protagonist point of view. This is a beautiful book. I've been raving about it. I've been trying to make everyone read it. I loved it so much. Then in September I have I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, who was the star as Sam in iCarly, which is where most of us know her from. I adored iCarly when I was younger. Loved watching that. I was both a Nickelodeon and a Disney girl. It sounded so interesting. Obviously, title grabs you, and I really wanted to learn more about kind of how she'd grown up as a child star. This is beautifully written. It's a very good book, which is a weird thing to say given the content, but I highly recommend it. It is written incredibly well, and I'd love to see more from McCurdy's writing. She mentions in this that she kind of wanted to delve into writing for the screen rather than acting on it, and I would love to see how she does that because her writing in this is fantastic. I've heard as well that the audiobook is great, so recommend picking that one up if you can handle the subject matter. All of the content warnings for every single one of the books that I'm mentioning here today will be down in the description. Please check them out if you need them. Then in October, another one that only has the title on the spine, and that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. This pile is getting big in front of me. Please shrink thyself. Oh my god, it's amazing. This is a dark academia. It is a light fantasy, primarily historical fiction with some fantasy sprinkled in that tackles topics of colonialism and is just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This book is amazing. It's a very, very slow read, and I found myself enjoying that. This was my introduction to Kuang's writing. I've since read The Poppy War and adored that as well. That almost made it onto this list, almost. It's Babel. Like, everyone was raving about it for a reason. I usually hate slow reads, and I loved this one, so just say. November, and we've got Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This one was gifted to me by Olivia Savannah, and then I was made to read it by Celine from Stuff Celine Does, so thank you very much to both of you because this was amazing. I've seen people talking about Robin Hobb for years now, and I've always been like, okay, like, I'll try it out at some point. I get it. I get it. It's so good. It's so good. This follows a young boy who is the bastard son of the heir to the throne. The heir to the throne, when this bastard son is then introduced to the court, is like, alright, well, now I've been shamed, I'm gonna bugger off. And he just leaves this young lad in the court to be raised as not really fitting in anywhere. And so the king decides what's a better use for a bastard child than as an assassin. Keep him close, but not too close. I was already emotionally broken by like here, and I'm very excited to carry on with the series. And then December was The Spear of Truth by Caroline Logan. This is the final book in the Four Treasures series, which is a YA Scottish fantasy. This entire series is beautiful. The character development, the plot changes, the world building, the utilisation of Scottish and Celtic mythology throughout. Caroline is a Scottish author. It is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Not enough people pick this up. It's from a smaller publishing house called Cranachan Publishing. They also do a free delivery in the UK, FYI, from the website directly. Just saying, you could get all 4 books. I love these so much. This was gifted to me by Caitlin from Manchester Rabbit. Thank you. What more can I say? Now we have these, and now it's time to delve into who won each category. At the first one, we have Piranesi and This Is How We Lose the Time War against The House in the Cerulean Sea. Cerulean Sea won. And then we have these again against Super Volcano, and Super Volcano won. Next we've got The Embroidered Book and then Wild and Wicked Things, with Minnesota's Geologist losing out there. Then The Travelling Cat Chronicles versus The Final Strife, and then The Final Strife versus I'm Glad My Mum Died, and obviously I picked this one, so I picked this one. Then Babel against Assassin's Apprentice, and I picked Babel. And then Assassin's Apprentice versus Spear of Truth, and I picked Assassin's Apprentice. Very confusing, I'm aware. Let's just go between these two, I picked Babel. Between these two, I picked I'm Glad My Mom Died. Between these two, I picked The Embroidered Book. And between these two, I picked Cerulean Sea. Then we have Babel versus I'm Glad My Mom Died, and Embroidered Book versus A House in the Cerulean Sea. So out of these two, House in the Cerulean Sea won, and out of I'm Glad My Mom Died and Babel won. So my top 2 books of 2022 were Babel and The House in the Cerulean Sea. With this one, I couldn't choose, so I went to Colepile, and my higher rated book on Colepile was The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. So that wins, even though Babel would have been a much better choice. So that is my 12 and 12. I know that this is a bit of a messy video just because how am I supposed to edit this? I don't know. I really, truly do not know. But there you go. Let me know, what was your favourite book in 2022? Did you manage to narrow it down? Because, like, let's be real, all 12 of these are my favourites of 2022. You all need to read them all, apart from Minnesota's Geologist. I know that's specific, but the rest of them, you all need to read them all. If you'd like to see some more from me, folks, the subscribe button is down below, along with the links in the description to all of my socials, and the content warnings are down in the description too. If you'd like to see some more from me, then I will catch you in the next video, and thank you so much for watching, folks. Bye!